Okay, welcome everyone. I'm very, very happy today to have a special guest here. His name is Steve Young. So Steve Young has more than one string in his bow. I mean, he's a musician. Maybe you know him, aka HEDFLUX. Wonderful music, really. Maybe you know him because of his background. You heard about that. So he has background, solid background in physics, a Master of Science and a PhD. So maybe, Steve, you could talk a little bit about that later. And of course, the author of a wonderful book I not read, but I devoured, really, A Fool's Wisdom, Science, Conspiracies, and the Secret Art of Alchemy. Yes, I have my one here. And it was delicious to read your book. Really.
Thank you very much.
So I could not hope better to dismantle the atoms today than you, because maybe you are the best. It's not maybe, I'm quite sure you're the best person, if I look at your background, the best one to explain everything about that and to share about many, many topics with us. So, Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I wrote this book just last year, published it, and it covers a lot of science, but my specialty, my background in my PhD and in my master's was in quantum physics. And though I did study other aspects of physics as well, that was kind of the main thrust of it. And my PhD was in theoretical nuclear physics, which is it's like an application of quantum physics where you're modeling nuclear reactions, and these are often these are hypothetical nuclear reactions. So you're modeling one type of atom bumping into another type of atom, and writing equations and codes and stuff like that to kind of calculate what might happen in that sort of a situation. So it's it's very mathematical, very computer intensive, a lot of coding and waiting a long time for codes to run to spit out the numbers, a lot of analysis, and a lot of work. It was hard work. And then when I finished my PhD, I was kind of out in the world, and I couldn't really get a job that was relevant to the kind of work that I'd been doing in university. I spent about 6 months unemployed, actually, and I applied to various different industries and sectors. And even though I had a very impressive list of qualifications, it seemed I had no skills that were useful in the real world. Anyway, I ended up working in IT, and for 5 years. During that time, I was just dreaming the whole time of being an independent musician, and I've been a DJ since I was young, and I just thought I really want to do this as my job. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in the corporate world. So I quit my job in 2010, and I just started devoting every day to making music on my computer at home. And since then, I've released over 100 tunes, and I've played all over the world. But yeah, that career sort of came to an abrupt end in 2020 when the world shut down and everything went super weird. But I was getting to the end of my tether with it, I must admit, at that point. By like 2018, 2019, I was starting to think of like, how am I going to get beyond this? You know, I don't want to be, you know, flying out to festivals every weekend for, for the rest of my life. And, you know, so I was doing a lot of research during COVID and the pandemic and all that into viruses and germ theory and looking at all the things I'd learned from physics. I was looking at it much more in depth and with real scrutiny. It's like I had new eyes, you know, compared to like 20 years ago when I was doing it. Now I had like new eyes and I was looking at this stuff and I was finding a lot of it just didn't stand up to scrutiny. So, long story short, I decided to write a book and to both try to debunk the aspects of modern science that I feel are just wrong and don't stand up to scrutiny, but also to talk about alchemy, which is an ancient scientific paradigm that was common for a long, long time. Maybe even more than 2,000 years was the standard scientific paradigm worldwide before we had this scientific revolution in the 17th century. So I wanted to both teach people about the ancient science of alchemy and also debunk some of the modern science. So, is that enough of an introduction?
That's perfect. So people will really understand all your knowledge, or you will share with us, um, because it's really interesting to um, know how deep you will go, and you already are going in the alchemy, which is, I find it really, really, really impressive. I have not like a quarter of your knowledge about that, and I feel it's very important to dive more into that because there is many answer in alchemy, much more than we think, and it's very important to understand it. So that's just my point of view too.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, I just found alchemy. It just sort of came to me. I started finding like books and hearing the word, and understood it to be the science of transformation. This was what I heard it was. I thought that sounds very interesting, and the more I realized that this idea of transformation seemed to like relate to everything, to you know, not just to like transformation of materials, but transformation of the soul, transformation of the human being, transformation of the world. You know, there's the science of transformation seems to cover absolutely everything. And the more I looked at it, the more I found that it was like this complete, perfect science that does actually explain everything in creation with no um, paradoxes or weirdness. Like everything is very elegant, everything just works very well. And I thought, you know, I call it alchemy, but what I've come to realize is actually alchemy was actually based on the science of Aristotle.
Mm.
So we've heard of Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, right? One of the greats. Well, I've been looking a lot more into his work, and he wrote extensively on the four elements and the ether, and he was strongly opposed to the atomic theory, which the atomic theory was born in ancient Greece. We're told that's where it originated. And Aristotle had some very strong objections to atomism in those days. And actually, so atomism didn't really go anywhere in those days. It was sort of shut down. And according to official history, we're told that between like 400, 4 or 500 BC, right
Mm.
up until the 17th century, so like 2,000 years or more, the whole world subscribed to Aristotelian physics.
Mm.
That is fire, earth, air, and water, and ether.
Yeah.
And it was worldwide. It was the standard scientific paradigm. Then there was a revival of atomism in the 17th century. And this came about through people like Newton, Isaac Newton, and Robert Boyle, and Galileo and Copernicus, and you know all this stuff, right? This came about in the 16th, 17th century, and they were opposed to Aristotle. They were opposed to the elements and the ether, and over a few hundred years, they kind of wrote all that stuff out of science and created a new scientific paradigm based in atoms, where the ether doesn't exist. And nobody talks about fire, earth, air, and water. And they've completely overturned science, and this is not just this is just not my conspiracy theory. This is actual like official history of science. Um, so in the modern times, we have to ask ourselves, well, are these atoms real? Have they actually really been isolated and proven to exist? Because we know that they're too small for anyone to see.
Yeah.
So maybe they haven't been proven quite as hard as we think they have. And yeah, as I say, the more I started looking into it, I realized nobody's actually working with atoms, like not in any kind of hands-on or direct sense.
Mm.
And I thought first about like chemists, right? Because chemists talk about working with molecules all the time. And I liked chemistry. I was good at chemistry at school. Um, but, the molecule, as I understand it, is actually just a 3D representation of the properties of the substance. And we tend to like think it's a model of the actual substance at this molecular level. But the more I looked into it, I realized there's no proof for that. It's like the theory of chemistry is not actually that useful. When you're just trying to make chemicals, you don't actually need to know anything about atoms. You're just mixing salts and liquids together.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's like you're just mixing stuff. It's like cooking. And when I looked at alchemy, which is the root of chemistry, and they tell you that in chemistry class that it all came from alchemy. Alchemists didn't even talk about atoms. They weren't even a consideration, right? They would talk about substances, talk about salts and liquids and all their various properties and stuff, but they had no consideration for atoms, and they didn't need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it kind of completely overturned science, and I would say the atomic science of the modern age has led us down a path where science is very like anti-nature and anti-life. You know what I mean? It's like because it's sort of disconnected from nature because it's no longer about the elements in the ether. It's about these tiny little particles called atoms, and it's become very quantitative instead of qualitative, right? It's like counting the number of atoms, or counting the frequencies of light and all this kind of stuff. It's like everything is reduced to numbers.
Yeah.
And we're told that qualities are not real, like the color red, right? We're told that, oh, the red doesn't really exist. It's an illusion created in your brain due to the certain frequency of light that's like gone into your eye that creates the illusion of, So what they've done is they've taken qualities and made qualities non-real and quantities real. So modern science is all about quantities. Calculate how much of this, calculate the energy of that, how many atoms are in 1 gram of this, how many, none of these numbers actually matter, and they don't help you achieve anything in life, So yeah, so I've got a lot of criticisms of atomic theory and quantum theory. Yeah.
So I just wonder, I'm not wondering about that, but because I understand already why, but many people are wondering why atoms so important to government, health system, countries, geopolitics, and so on, because it's a huge use in many different fields. Let's say why atoms, or let's say neutrons, electrons, atoms, the matter as they represent it. Why is it so important to them?
Yes, well, the atomic age
Mm.
officially began in 1945 after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
So actually, nuclear research was pretty secretive up until that point. The public didn't really know about it. But after those bombs, they essentially declared the beginning of the atomic age by announcing this new type of threat,
Yeah.
which was the threat that the whole world could be destroyed in an instant by the push of a button, right, by a giant nuclear bomb. That wasn't that was like, it's like a new fear, right? A new fear that was unlocked. Now, the problem with the Hiroshima and Nagasaki stories is, yeah, there were bombs, and the cities were bombed,
Mm.
but there was no nuclear fallout. And this is, crucial because this is what nuclear physics would have predicted. What nuclear physics does predict is that there would be this fallout where everything would be in a state of decay. Life would not be able to sustain itself. There'd be like mutations and all this like weirdness, and this would last for potentially thousands of years before you could go there again safely.
Yeah.
But actually, the city's built right back after the war, like really quickly and very well, actually. And there's like museum there now and everything. So even mainstream physics acknowledge that there was no fallout, but they say that it blew away in the wind, which is a bit of a cop out. But there was no fallout, and there were explosions, and obviously a lot of people got killed and everything. But there's been studies into it subsequently that have suggested that the bombs contained napalm and mustard gas.
Mm.
So not actually nuclear fuels at all,
Yeah.
but napalm to give the firebombing effect, and the mustard gas to give the poisoning. The mustard gas would have the effect of like the radiation poisoning and stuff. It would sort of stimulate the effect of nuclear poisoning. So it's basically a dirty bomb
Yeah.
at that point. So now the illusion is that the bomb was made by quantum physics. That they needed, the genius of quantum physics and the understanding of Einstein and the splitting of the atom. That all that was like necessary to create this big bomb. But actually, you don't need to be a quantum physicist to make a bomb, right? It's actually you just mix your fuel together and spark it, right? It's like you don't need to be a genius. Um, and bombs have no limit to how big they can be. You
Yeah.
can make them as big as you want. It's like a computer. You can just make it as big as you want, as big as you can afford. And so when I say to people, don't be afraid of nuclear, I'm just saying, yes, there is still the possibility of war, and yes, there's still the possibility of bombs, but you don't need to worry about them being nuclear, because the nuclear part of it is a hoax to scare you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw that wonderful, by the way, I mean, wonderful image and story about Hiroshima. It was about a photographer, a famous photographer from there who took pictures of the survivor at the end of the bridge, entering Hiroshima. He became famous because he took the photo just a few minutes after the bombing, the so-called nuclear bomb attacked Hiroshima. And despite injuries around radiation and so on, he took photos. So just that means uh, there is something that does not work here. I mean,
Yeah.
and every year there is some kind of rituals. It's not rituals, but just memoration, about what happened. There is a museum and there is 1 minute of silence to remind about the story and so on. So to make sure people keep it in mind, and this remains very important and present in nowadays life too. So there is always the threat of a new, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, the threat, which is always hanging over our heads. I mean, even now today, they still talk about Russian nuclear weapon, like it's just poised, waiting to be launched. Someone's just going to push the button anytime and just like wipe out Britain or wipe out America. But that's been going for 60 years or more. That threat has just been there, and they wind it up on the news. The more they use the word nuclear, and then people start to worry about the possibility of nuclear war. But war is a real possibility, and I'm not taking that away. And these bombings were terrible, and I'm not taking anything away from that either. But yeah, the nuclear, it was called the nuclear scare scam.
Yeah.
It's a type of fear mongering that they use with this word nuclear. But when you start to break it down, so actually, what does nuclear mean?
Yeah.
It means nut or kernel or seed, right? So, so when they're talking about the nucleus of an atom, what they mean is like the seed of the substance. That it's got some kernel or seed that like uniquely identifies it or something. But what Aristotle said was that matter is continuous. It is divisible all the way down. You never get to a smallest piece, right? Like they would say, for example, the atomists, they would say, if you took a drop of water and then you took half the water away and then halved it again and then halved it again and halved it again, halved it again, eventually you're going to get down to a water molecule. Uh, and then you're not going to be able to like half that, right? Because that's a molecule. But um, this is a fallacy. There's no evidence that there's anything smallest. You know what I mean? It's continuous. It's fractal. You can just keep dividing it all the way down. So yeah, so the only real evidence then, well, the other main evidence that people will say is, okay, well, if the nuclear bomb isn't real, what about nuclear power?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you look at nuclear power, it's actually quite a simple setup. It works just like a kettle, and that's in their own words. You know, it works like a kettle. You've got a metal heating element which goes into the water, and there's heat coming from it, which is creating steam and driving turbines. Now, where does the nuclear part come into it? Well, they say that the metal, uranium, it emits a special kind of nuclear energy. But how do we know it emits a special nuclear energy? I mean, it's just like hot water. It's just like hot metal in water. It's no different from putting hot metal in water. And they'll say, oh, but the neutrons are heating the water and stuff like that. Well, okay, how do you detect a neutron? So you look into how they detect a neutron. Well, they detect neutron by seeing a flash of light. They don't actually see a neutron, they see light. And you find this with a lot of things in physics, like they're actually detecting light, which is radiation. Radiation means light. But then using theories, they will infer that they have seen a nuclear particle, but they've not seen anything like that. It's a theoretical presumption. And a lot of things are like that, like the Geiger counter. You know, the Geiger counter will click when it's exposed to UV light. Yes, it's the UV light that causes it to conduct and create a click. And you know, some substances are emitting like ultraviolet or ultravisible radiation, and this is what causes the Geiger counter to click. So yeah, just as you start going into all these things, and you're like, well, how do they know they've got an electron? How do they know they've got a neutron? How do they know they're splitting the atom? When you really dive into it, you find they don't. It's their theoretical beliefs that they're doing that, but they've not proven it in physical reality, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, because theory and experiment have become separated in physics. I mean, I'm an example of that, right? I was like trained as a theorist. Now, is there any benefit to being a theorist all by itself, like doing no practice, not building anything, not doing any experiments, just theorizing? Is that a proper thing for a scientist to do? It's not. You should be doing everything, right? You should be studying the philosophy, the theory, and the practice to be a complete scientist. But instead, they put people into these camps. So you're an experimenter and you're a theorist, and the problem is now the theory and the experiment are just in completely separate worlds. Experimentalists just get on and build things and solve problems and fix things, and the engineers make things all the time. But the theorists just sit in their offices running models that never amount to anything. But then you'll have then the experimentalists will believe what the theorists are saying as well, and they'll talk in theoretical terms that haven't been proven, and so the whole thing is a mess, honestly. And I think in 2020 with COVID and everything, it really showed its true colors, like what a complete mess the scientific establishment is, and how inconsistent all its beliefs are, and how things don't work, and people are getting loads of money to do nothing. They get all this money and produce nothing good or useful or beneficial. And so I just had to speak out about it because I actually love science and I want science to be good. It's like you have to call out the BS. So that's what I'm doing.
And you're doing right because we need much more people doing that, showing the truth about all bunch of terrible things. I mean, everyone is following a false, a wrong direction, and it's in every field. I mean, when I first join you for the interview, you remember I sent you some link, and I was searching something from around, let's say, supplement for health, and I ended in how can I say that? Something around, CERN and so on. So it was completely linked to quantum physics and so on, from a supplement to that point. I mean, it was ridiculous for me to end up from supplement to that kind of things. I was like, okay, even there, I mean, if you look at what you are searching, if you spend the time with awareness, you see there is something completely, I mean, odd in that.
Yeah. Yeah, the way science so quickly, like when you look up anything to do with science or medicine or whatever, it very quickly like tries to like railroad you into like atoms and viruses and space and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's a problem. I mean, I've been getting a lot of homeschoolers have been reaching out to me, like homeschool kids, but also the parents as well. And they're basically asking they want honest science, right? So I'd never heard this term before, honest science, but it's spot on because the science teachers are not being honest.
No.
They're repeating what they learned or whatever. They're saying what they have to say, but they're not being honest. When they say things like, if they talk about atoms existing, for example, they're not being honest because they themselves do not have proof of the existence of atoms, and I know they don't, right? And if they talk about viruses existing, they're not being honest, right? Talking
Oh,
about outer space and all that, again, not being honest, because if they were honest with themselves, they would have to say, I don't personally have any proof that stuff exists. I'm just saying it because I have to say it, right? Um, so yeah, a lot of homeschoolers now, and they're very bright young kids, and they don't buy into like the moon landings, or they
mm,
grew up during COVID, so they don't buy in any of that stuff either, and they still want science education, but everywhere they look, it's just bloated with all this nonsense. So yeah, so again, I'm just trying to help separate what is good in science from what is bad.
yeah. And yeah, yeah, for sure. The very first point, and you mentioned it in your book, was about viruses. And we all know viruses. We cannot see them. We don't prove their existence at all. So what are those kind of viruses? I mean, everything should think about it with consciousness and honesty, because everything is wrong, even when you search for something in a very old book of virology and so on. There is so much information that does not connect between each other. There is like this showing proving this, and this is showing proving the opposite. So even if we go with Anders, and I mean, it's another discussion, another talk, but everything shows us viruses does not exist as so it's something completely different, and we cannot spread something unless it's like maybe joy or anger, but there is no viruses you can spread. And I mean, will put my family in danger, my grandmother.
Yeah.
Only the, yeah, ox, let's say, to be polite. Let's talk about ox.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, how positive emotions are contagious, right? Like laughter and joy and stuff like that. But you don't talk about like a laughter virus or like a laughter particle. When one person laughs, there's like particles of laughter going in, and then they're then catching the laughter or whatever. It's or like yawning, you kind of catch a yawn. Yeah, there's like a sympathetic resonance that occurs, and it's like there doesn't need to be a transmission of a particle for you to like sort of pick up the energy from someone else. Um, and yeah, with the viruses, I was thinking how if you think about it, it's actually like they are atoms of disease,
Mm.
right? So they've taken disease and they've objectified it into a physical creature, but then they've made it so small that like no one can see it or whatever. And I must admit, when I first started looking into virology back in 2020, I thought viruses were bigger. I thought they were maybe like the size of bacteria or something like that. And then I started looking into it, and they're like, what, 1,000 times smaller than a bacteria? I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, that's getting down to like quantum levels or whatever. Um, and then, so yeah, apparently they say it's like a virus consists of about 5 million atoms together in a cluster. At that point, I was just like, hang on. Um, that's because you're getting into the quantum mechanics at that point. And so, yeah, it wasn't a big stretch for me to come to the realization that viruses were theoretical when I realized that they were that small. I didn't know that people weren't looking at them under microscopes, and I think a lot of people still assume that, right? That the doctors are looking at the viruses under the microscope and watching them like attacking our cells and stuff like that. But yeah, all that's just been debunked completely. And the true source of illness is something a lot of people don't want to look at. They would rather not face the true source of their condition, so they're happy to believe it was a virus or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had interview before the new year in December with a woman in France. She did a very interesting synthesis of Béchamp works, and she was speaking about microzema. You have heard about that term, maybe.
I've heard
Uh,
the term. Yeah, yeah. These are like small, like
oh,
parasites or something, or
yeah, it's like little unit of life
uh-huh.
under the let's say under the, not the shape, but the oh, not the weight, not the shape. I'm losing my word in English. It's smaller than the cells, for example. It's really the small unit of life, and you can find microzema everywhere in the liver, in your kidney, everywhere. It's uh, like every scientist cannot imagine that the cells are so-called built, um, let's say, by microzema as bacteria, and also all the things you have in your body all comes with the microzema. They are here to doing their job. It's like the builders of many kind of things in our body, and they escape that idea in science, so they don't want to see that microzema are real, and they are always living in your body, and they are maintaining your body in, let's say, a state of life, because there is that spark of life in the microzema. I mean, when you are ending your life in a way, it's let's say you are too old and it's the end of your life. Microzema are doing their job of putrefaction. It's reducing your body and all the matter in yourself, let's say, to give it back to the soil, for example. And there is, this cycle of life indeed.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because it's the link between the nature and us and all the living indeed. We are part of the nature. We are part of this beautiful, I would say universe, but nature. We are all the same and we belong to each other in that way, even if it's completely different from you, from me, from my dog or your cat or whatever. Every living is different because microzema is specific,
Hmm.
but it's like destruction and reconstruction thanks to microzema. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know much about microzyma. I mean, I'd heard the term. Yeah, I was well, at school and university, obviously very much in the physics and math side of things, and I didn't do well in biology. But I came at it in 2020 when all this stuff was going on. I really wanted to understand biology and medicine a lot better, and well, medicine in particular, because I'd been down this path with shamanic
Mm.
medicine as well, and trying to heal naturally as possible, like raising my kids and trying to use natural medicine and whenever possible. And so, yeah, coming at the virology again, realizing how this is a completely like inverted approach to medicine. It's like it eliminates healing,
Mm.
because there's no possibility of healing a virus, right? It's like it doesn't even work. It doesn't even make sense to talk about healing a virus, does it? Because it's not yeah, it's not a condition that can be healed. It's like an attack. It's a type of war, type of warfare. You're
Mm.
being attacked by an alien other, an invisible alien other, um, and so it changes the kind of paradigm of medicine from, oh, let's heal the body,
Mm.
to, oh, let's kill the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Let's kill the bad guys. And then you see then that the instruments they use in this kind of medicine, right? Like needles, like scalpels, like hard drugs. They use like weapons of war essentially on people when they're trying to heal them because they believe they got to kill the bad guys, kill the disease or whatever. Um, yeah, so this goes against like the alchemical view of healing, which is really toxicology.
Mm.
The idea that disease is caused by toxins in the body, or by trauma.
Yeah.
Um, and this is what I guess we're trying to get back to, this understanding of that there are things that the body will just absorb and take on, but there are other things that it can't deal with, and those are toxins, and they get stored, and the body deals with them in various different ways.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, every time I get sick now, and it's pretty rare that I do, I mean, I just feel like I'm cleansing the waters in my body. It's all different types of elimination, like fever and snot and coughing and all these things. They're all like just like eliminating impure materials from the body. So although it's not pleasant, it's good that we have it, right?
Yeah. It's some kind of alchemical process in our body. It's exactly that. I mean, I see it in that way, indeed. There is an alchemist in France. His name is Tony Serron. I don't know if you heard about him or not. And he's talking about the Negro. Um, I'm sorry,
Negredo?
Negredo. Yeah.
Negredo,
It's like working on yourself and doing your part with your so kind illness. So you have to work on yourself in your dark, things and purify. And it's like you're doing that when you are so-called ill, when you have a disease, you are doing that in your body. And it's also working in your mind to purify. And it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because as you know, purifying is about obviously letting go of things that you don't need anymore, and you're physically eliminating substances, but yeah, you're also letting go of things mentally, right? When you're just like when I got sick just after Christmas there, just for like 4 days, I had like fever and coughing and stuff. I was overindulging in the lead up to Christmas. It was no surprise. I ate things I wouldn't normally eat, and I ate too much and had something to drink and all that. So anyway, but I think some of the hardest thing about being ill sometimes is just letting go of the fact that you now can't do anything. You're gonna have to just lie down and give up for any ideas you had about going to work or doing whatever. And there's this kind of like letting go that you have to do, like surrendering to the process. And it can be hard because part of you just wants to get up and get on and get busy, or you feel kind of weak or useless. But it's sort of like, yeah, it needs you to just let go and surrender to the process. Um, yeah, so I got through it in about 3 or 4 days, and yeah, I think that was only like the first time I got sick this year. So I feel like I'm doing a lot better at keeping my body pure than I used to. But I still get these detox events every so often.
Yeah. And our body is able to manage many, many things. If we give our mind, our body, let's say, to stay on the, not the, if we put our nervous system in a quietness, let's say, if we provide like the good things for our nervous system, we are able to heal because we don't need to think about too much things, to be in stress and so on. So everything is working perfectly. Our vagus nerve is dealing with everything without any intervention of anyone. So everything is healing the proper way because it's how we works indeed all the time. We don't need an external help or, you know, product or drug, whatever it is. We don't need that because we need to recover after that from the introduction of this toxic thing. So it's like a double healing we need to do after all.
Yes. Well, it's interesting with in the atomic view of things. So, excuse me. If you think that a biologist is taught to view the body in terms of cells,
Mm.
but a physicist is taught to view the body in terms of atoms. But so it's a hugely complicated thing when you think of it in terms of atoms, because you're like, well, there's trillions and trillions of atoms all throughout the body, and atoms, of course, don't touch either, so they're not even, they're all just like hanging together in space by these invisible forces. And so, like, if you've got pain, or something hurts, or whatever, like thinking about the possibility of what that might be in atomic terms is just absolutely maddening. You think, oh, what's happening? The atoms falling apart, or the molecules broken? Did you lose some atoms, or did some of the electrons get stripped off some of the atoms in your back or something? How are you going to get the atoms that you lost back in there and everything? I mean, that's why you have to take a drug, like to take some new atoms to put it in there to replace the old atoms. It's just incredibly complex. But then when I came to alchemy, and they say, well, no, the fundamental elements are fire, earth, air, and water, and then you look at how we have fire, earth, air, and water in the body and how they interact, it's so much simpler. Like the whole system becomes so much simpler and more relatable, because we intuitively understand the behavior of fire. We intuitively understand the behavior of water, and earth and air as well. And they're so essential to life and so sensible. We can sense them and feel them, and so it just made understanding like health and disease a lot simpler. Um, and yeah, so I mean, it's crazy what people have to read now if they go and look up their symptoms or whatever, and they have to read all these like big long names of these viruses and all these like weird drug names and everything. I mean, it's an absolute minefield. Um, because it's all synthetic language, like the names of the chemicals, the names of the viruses, all that stuff. It's all completely synthetic language that doesn't relate to anything you can see in creation. So I think that's why, you know, people often just give their power away in that. So they're just like, okay, doctor, do do whatever you must with me. I couldn't possibly understand what you're doing. You know, yeah.
And then we can say there is this link in medicine, in health, in let's say geopolitics and so on. There is also we can use that point of view of atomism and so on with the Earth and what is our planet.
Mm.
I mean, there is also the story of the atoms going there to,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, yes, this all ties in with the question of cosmology, which has been, you know, debated as the flat Earth debate, flat Earth versus globe Earth, very heated debate online for a long time now. Um, well, yeah. So the model of the solar system that we're taught, that's called heliocentrism, the idea of Earth as the spinning ball going around the sun, and all of this traveling through space and through the universe. You know, this is also a new idea. Came about 16th, 17th century, and they didn't really start teaching in schools till like the 18th, 19th century. Um, and then we have this whole like space program, like NASA and sci-fi and all this kind of stuff that we have in the 20th century as well. So all of that, when sort of taken together, there's a whole process that, you know, people will go through, like a line of inquiry of looking into all that stuff. Now I say I don't expect people to just like convert to flat Earth after like listening to me or whatever, but you know, people who do that is a whole line of inquiry what they've gone through, where they look at every single aspect of the globe Earth, where it comes from, and you know, what is the evidence for it, and eventually get to a point where it can just no longer believe in the globe, like the big ball, like planet Earth. It just becomes unbelievable because all the pictures of it are doctored or engineered or computer generated, and we find no evidence for spinning, no evidence for like the actual spinning of the ball or moving through space. And it's a lot for people to take in, but and it's a very controversial subject. But you can see the relationship when you look at scientific history. The solar system is like the atom. It's just like it actually, with the sun in the center and the planets going around, like the nucleus in the center and the electrons going around. And actually, the sun is said to be a nuclear reactor, a nuclear, you know, ball of energy, like in space, like burning by itself. Um, and so the sun is a nuclear thing, like a nucleus. It's like a giant nucleus in the sky. Um, so, and all this goes totally against the ancient teaching I was telling you about, the Aristotelian view. They've taken the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and they've explained it all using quantum physics and nuclear physics and this theory of gravity. Now, gravity, a lot of people know that gravity is a very, very weak force. They remember it's like a really small number, like 10 to the minus 11 or something like this. Um, and because of this, when they make a model of the universe based on the theory of gravity, everything is really far away because the force is said to be so weak that the when they do the calculations for like how far away the stars are and all this kind of stuff, they end up being super far away, like millions of light years away, ridiculous distances that are just impossible for the mind to comprehend. Um, and so, yeah, the whole cosmology, which is built on atomism and built on heliocentrism, has created this view of the universe where it's infinitely expanding. Everything is so far away that you're never gonna get to go there or see it in a million years. It's just like it's far away and it's getting further away every single passing moment, right? Everything is just moving away from us all the time. But when we use our senses and our eyes, we look, we see the stars are the same every night. They go round and round in circles. The constellations never change. We don't see, we would expect to see all the stars moving apart and going in different ways if we were flying through the universe, right? But actually the whole sky is pretty fixed. Um, so yeah, so basically cosmology is really comes into question as well, and uh, it's a very controversial topic, and people get really upset about gravity. But I was almost 10 years ago. I started looking into flat Earth stuff, and it really resonated with me. I found everything that they were saying checked out, and the space program is a charade. It's like it's like counterintelligence, right? It's the military, the U.S. military or whatever. They tell you that's what they're doing, but they're actually doing something else. So they have counterintelligence is what they tell the public they're doing to distract everyone. They're like, we're working on rockets to go to space, and public's like, all right, that's great, brilliant. But they're actually working on other stuff that's a bit more top secret, right? So, um, yeah, the whole space program is a pure charade, and so it just it becomes hard to believe in the globe and outer space and everything when you don't have that trust in NASA anymore, and when the physics doesn't really add up as well. It's just like, well, it just becomes unjustifiable to continue believing.
Yeah, yeah. When you see that all the space program are done, or mainly in big pools with the bubbles
Yeah.
in the videos, so it's just make you smiling because it's just impossible. I mean, oh, open your eyes.
Yeah, yeah. And they even tell you that they're training in the pools as well, and then
Yeah. So that's why maybe what you see, what you saw, well,
yeah. Yeah, NASA's really gone off the deep end with all that. I mean, they've lost a lot of credibility, but then you have SpaceX, which is now taking most of the focus. And obviously, a lot of people think, Elon Musk is basically saying that we're going to go and colonize the planet Mars and things. But in the sort of flat Earth conception, Mars is not actually like a land. It's not like a place in the sky that you can fly to and land on. The we don't know what the heavens are. We don't know what the stars are. I don't claim to know what the stars are, but I don't believe that they are actual like lands that you can land on and conquer, plant a flag or whatever. And the same with the moon. I think these are luminous objects. They could be in the glass. We're told that there's a dome over the earth. It says in the Bible there's a dome over the earth, and in other ancient cosmologies as well. And so, if the light is shining on the glass, then all the stars could just be points of light on the glass, right? Rather than like physical objects or lands that are like really far away. They could actually be much, much closer and more energetic, less physical. Um, and that's my view. I think it would be, um, yeah. I just don't. I don't buy the idea that they are solid objects or like orbs of energy, right? I think it's more likely they're like rays of light, like angles of light that are, you know, coming at you from different angles, right? Um, and you have this thing with angles and angels. The word angel and the word angle are very similar, and this is said to be because every star has its own unique angle. It never actually changes from its angle. The angle's always fixed. So they provide light and illumination, so they're like the angels in the sky, you know. But I don't know what the stars are. I don't know what the heavens. I don't know how the heavens work. I don't claim to.
Yeah. But we don't know. We don't know. I don't know either, but I'm not buying all the stuff they told us years and years ago and still spraying to keep us
Well, this
like
is it.
zombie. Yeah.
Flat earthers get a bad rep, but they don't all believe the same thing. It's not a cult and not a club. As I say, it's like people who have looked at the globe and studied it so much to the point where they can't believe in it. And that's really all they have in common. They may have different ideas about what the world is, or different ideas about religion and God and all that kind of thing. There's all kind of different things that they believe, but they are all united in the fact that the globe does not exist and cannot exist.
Mm.
And yeah. So, but there's more and more people, I think, in that camp now. It's becoming much more common.
Yeah. What could be the first for someone who still believe in all the story of the round earth and the narrative and so on, what should be the first thing to question for you to
Well,
see?
it's usually the moon landing.
Mm,
Because that's like deeply programmed into our minds from the youngest age as being the peak achievement of humanity.
mm,
So, um, and it looks terrible. The video looks terrible. I mean, kids these days just don't fall for it. It was different maybe 60, 70 years ago when TV was like brand new, and people had like complete trust of the government and the media and things. But now it's very hard for young people to believe that moon landing footage. And obviously it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
mm,
So that's usually where it starts with people. And when I was at university, I actually didn't believe in the moon landing. I'd seen some documentaries, and I thought, yeah, they probably faked it and everything. But I believed everything else. I believed that they went to Mars and the Mars rover. I believed the Hubble Space Telescope. I believed the Voyager, like deep space probes. I believed all those like pictures of Jupiter and Saturn like close up. These are not real pictures. They're not real photographs, right? It's like the Hubble Space Telescope isn't out in space taking pictures of the stars, right? It actually makes no sense at all. Like that whole thing of like telescopes in space. Like I was taught that there's something called the Hubble Deep Field,
mm.
a very famous photograph with like all these like hundreds of galaxies.
Yeah.
And everyone looks at it and just goes, "Wow, the universe is so vast." Um, well, so I was taught that in order to get that photograph, the Hubble telescope focuses on a patch of darkness in the sky. Think about that for a second. It focuses
Uh-huh.
on a patch of darkness. All right. It's actually impossible to focus on darkness. It's impossible. So anyway, the Hubble telescope is said to be orbiting the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so this big tube, it's got no engines on it or anything. It's just like a big tube with a mirror. It's orbiting the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour and somehow manages to focus on a patch of complete darkness for 21 days straight, capturing the light. And that's how they got the Hubble Deep Field. And it just makes no sense whatsoever, right? You can't focus on darkness.
Yeah.
And how the hell could it stay focused on one point for 21 days when it's traveling at 17,000 miles an hour in a circle and it's got no engines on it or anything like that? So, yeah, just a lot of these images are just fake images, and they're easy to fake, like these like star fields and all that kind of stuff. It's actually pretty easy stuff to fake, and people believe it because they can't falsify it. They got no nobody else can prove it. Anything that NASA says, it's like an appeal to authority. You're just like, well, it must be true because NASA said it, right? Um, so yeah, so all of that stuff and like the discovery, the discovery disaster, the guys that allegedly blew up, American school kids watched that live. A lot of them, they actually
Mm.
brought the TV into the classroom and said, "We're going to watch this rocket launch." The kids are sitting watching, it goes up and then just blows up, and they're all just like, "Oh!" And then it turns out everyone who went on the rocket is still alive, and it wasn't even really dead. Like all the astronauts who were supposedly on that rocket are apparently still alive. Um, and yeah, so just everything, when you start looking at NASA, everything just starts falling away. And loads of people have done a lot of work to expose that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I just remember someone posted one um, one picture of the universe, let's say, and it was made on Canva.
it was made on Canva. Yeah.
Yeah, like you see the stars and the big expansion, and it was made on Canva. Like you take there is something you can already use and put everything you need more to do something for yourself. I mean, a film or whatever you want, but you can use that part of Canva, and they did just like the universe with that photo on Canva available. I mean, everything was so funny about that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is it. So nature is is beautiful and full of detail that's very, very hard to fake.
Mm.
And when someone does something new, like if they go to a new place or like underwater or anything like that and take a picture of nature, it's like there's just a phenomenal amount of detail. But when we look at what NASA produces, it's all CGI, computer generated, faked, and just lacking the kind of detail that you would expect. Um, and so, I was aware that like all the hoo-ha over space, so things like Virgin Galactic and SpaceX and all these, there was all these like different space programs and all these different missions. I was very curious that like none of those taught us anything new about the cosmos. They end up talking more about the astronauts,
Mm.
and the astronauts will be like, "Oh yeah, it was great. It was so nice seeing the Earth from space and everything." I'm like, "Who cares? Like, what did you learn? Like, show us the stars. Show us the view of space from space." And something we've never seen, right? It's like that's what every kid imagines, right? If you go up to space, what does it look like out there? And we never get to see that. All we get, the camera always points to the rocket or the Earth. Is like, show us the cosmos, man. But they never ever do.
So funny. So funny. Oh, we live in a strange world,
Yeah, it
but
is.
we can smile about that. That's great. That's the perfect thing. So, um, I was wondering because I'm really curious. I was wondering about all that stuff coming back to atoms, all that stuff about CERN and so on. So, how this is functioning, the big. Have you got any idea on what is really, or more certainly, that thing?
Yeah, yeah. So particle accelerators. That's yeah something that people will say is application of quantum theory and atomic or nuclear theory.
Mm.
Um, but again, looking into those, looking at it more closely, well, for a start, I noticed that they never produce anything like that anyone can use, right? So they're always promising to uncover new physics or make new discoveries about the secrets of matter and all this kind of thing. But yeah, nothing ever really is created or produced. But they do have these big machines.
Mm.
And when you look into how it works, so it works basically like it's a ring of electricity.
Mhm.
They tell you they're accelerating particles, but I would argue that it's electricity going round the loop, right? It's like a vacuum tube, and electricity is going through the vacuum, and they get it from a tungsten filament, like a light bulb. So they heat that or run electricity through that, and then that will then come out like a lightning bolt,
Mm.
and then that's then accelerated through this loop with like magnets. And so what happens when you accelerate electricity in a loop like that is that it produces a toroidal field, a toroidal magnetic field around the loop. Um, so these circular particle accelerators will produce a large magnetic field, potentially kilometers. I mean, if you think of CERN, um, it's 26 kilometers in diameter.
Mm.
So you think of the size of magnetic field that's going to be produced around that when it's switched on. It's
Mm.
actually enough to cover like the whole city of Geneva or whatever. Um, and they never talk about that. They never talk about the fact that these things produce a huge magnetic field. They talk about the particles inside that's the interesting part, right? It's like we need to watch the particles smash together and see what happens. But actually, for me, what's interesting is the huge magnetic field that they produce with these machines, and I think that's more likely to be the reason for it.
Mm.
The other thing they can do is they can create high frequency radiation as well, like X-rays. So, like that one in France, the Soleil, um, is mainly an X-ray machine. If you look like what do they actually do with it? Well, they use it to generate X-rays so that they can scan stuff, you
Mm.
know. Um, which is not all that groundbreaking, really. I suppose what they call synchrotron radiation, right, which is X-ray
Yeah.
radiation. It's like high frequency radiation. So, and they're able to get the high frequency because the electricity is going so fast. It's high frequency electricity. So, honestly, I think the whole thing with particles is a complete distraction. I think
Mm.
these are just big electrical magnetic generators, um, and yeah, they just keep us interested in about electrons, protons, and neutrons, but it's just electricity and
Yeah.
magnetism.
Yeah. Because I'm really wondering what are they doing? What the point of doing that? I'm really like,
I mean, I still, I don't know exactly what their, the true motivation, like the people who funded it and built it and all that. I mean, I don't know, but I know that what they're saying they're doing is not why they're doing it. It's got to be some other reason, and it seems like creating a large toroidal magnetic field would be something that scientists would probably want to do to experiment with, uh, or maybe is like say for some kind of protection. Because the new CERN, the one they want to build a bigger one,
uh,
which circles Geneva.
mm.
So Geneva would actually be inside the ring
Yeah.
of energy, and so it could potentially create this whole magnetic field around this entire city. And the Swiss do things like that. I I, uh, I saw like the Swiss Alps are like basically hollow. There's like cities and all stuff like inside the mountains and things like that. So they obviously have a lot of money, and they've been neutral in all the wars, and they have the UN and the WHO and all these like the Swiss banks and all this stuff there. So I think there's a whole conspiracy in Switzerland, and I don't really know much about it, but
Everyone is like bringing the money here and like washing the
yeah, yeah, washing
like
it. Uh,
okay.
yeah, who knows? I don't know what's really going on in Switzerland, but it seems there's a lot of power there. Yeah,
Mm.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. Everyone is putting the money there and they know nothing will never happen. It's like a secure place for everyone who wants
Yeah,
to. Yeah. And many people are going there because they feel they feel it's also a secure place to be, but it's a special, from my point of view, having spent a few days going crossing the Switzerland or staying a few days. It's a special mentality because it's some kind of um, during the war, it was the same. It's some kind of deletion. So you can say I'm searching the word, I'm not sure. If your neighbor is not doing the right thing, you can call the police and say, okay, the car is not parked in the right place or just in the center of the parking, and it's not perfectly parked, and you can, even if it's your best friend or, I mean, the
I see.
the person you are working with, and at the end of the day, you will go and have a drink with that person, but it's normal to say, okay, the car was not well parked, or you did something,
Yeah, yeah,
normal. Very
yeah. It's
strange.
like got people like policing each other, and probably quite tightly controlled.
Yeah, yeah. It's normal. I mean, yeah, it's very, very surprising.
Yeah. I've never been. I don't know much about it other than it does seem to be an area where all this like power is concentrated. All this globalist,
Yeah.
globalist power. Yeah.
By the way, it's beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
land and beautiful landscape, and yeah,
Yeah, it looks amazing. Yeah, I've seen the images in the mountains and everything. I mean, it looks like the energy there is just phenomenal. I would love to go. I don't hate the Swiss or anything, but yeah, it's just an interesting case among all countries, really, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And we don't know so much about it, so that was not the point. Just
Yeah.
something that went in the talk. Um, so if I come back to your background, for example, I know you are a very good musician because I discovered you in a talk with Andrew Kaufman, was presenting Alchemy and one of your album, and you are doing really special music. There is something different, even if it's electronic. There is something different. So, um, what inspired you doing this kind of music?
Well, I'd been into music and DJing like from the youngest age, basically, and uh, I enjoy yeah, I just enjoy sitting in front of my computer making music, and I thought, people say like do what you enjoy, right? Find what you enjoy and do it. So I went for it, and it's hard to say really. I wanted to create my own style, so I wasn't content making the styles that were already out there, like house and techno and drum and bass, and that I wanted to like create something new, and so I became known as the creator of a style called psychedelic breaks, and that kind of became like the whole thing. So it's like the music is psychedelics, but it's got breakbeat. It's like high energy, and but it just evolved over the years. In the beginning, I was much younger, and the music was more like clubby and more ravey. And then, as I grew as an artist, I started to incorporate more melodies and make stuff that was like slower and um, just try to diversify my sound as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, definitely, inspiration took a big hit in 2020 because in some respects, I've been living in a bubble up until that point. Just focusing on music most of the time. I never watched the news. Like, I mean, like for like from 2010 to like 2020, I basically never watched the news. I was just like creating my own reality, right? I was just like focusing on my own thing, doing my own thing, and not really bothering with popular culture or what was happening in the news or anything. Uh, and I remember, yeah, in 2020, someone was like, this coronavirus thing. I was like, don't worry about it, man. I was like, it'll be out of the news in a couple of weeks. They'll be on to something else. And he was like, no, I mean, I think this one's going to be here for a while. I was like, all right, I'll look into it. And yeah, and then I just, I lost a lot of inspiration for the music life at that point. As obviously everything shut down and there was all this division and all this bitterness. But I kept on working on music, and I have released some music in the last few years, and I've got some more to release this year as well, actually. Arkana,
Yeah.
our mutual friend Arkana, yeah. So I've done remixes of her music,
Yeah.
and it's really good, and I need to release it. So I'm gonna get that out this year as soon as I can.
Yeah, she's doing very good music too. I've listened to and I love it too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's really good working with vocals because all the music I did before was like wordless essentially, um, and she's got a great voice and like really meaningful vocals that are like really healing.
yeah,
So I've done like three remixes of her tunes, as well as like instrumental versions as well. So
yeah.
uh, yeah,
You
I'm gonna
use
do that.
exactly the right word I had in my mind for minutes, more than that, even healing, because music is healing. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it can be for sure, and I mean I've had a lot of healing experiences with music, and often it's just like crying. Sometimes music will just make you cry harder than you've cried in years, and that's the healing done, right? It was that you just needed to cry, and the music kind of brought you there because you can't just make yourself cry, right? You know, you can't just like force it to happen. And sometimes it takes a bit of music, some like euphoria or something that's said in one of the lyrics. It just shoots like straight to your heart, and you feel like God has spoken to you through the song or something, and then it's just like oh, and then you like cry and process all this emotion, and then you're through it. And of course, music is an integral part of shamanic healing as well. Um, so generally, for shamanic ceremonies, you will fast before the ceremony, maybe 24 hours or even as much as like 3 days or something, fasting, and you go into the ceremony, you take the medicine, and then the shaman will play music and sing songs all through the night, and the music and the medicine interact inside of you, and there's a very it's very different, like the medicine with no music versus the medicine with the music. There's clearly an interaction that happens where the medicine becomes activated by the music, and specific songs will heal specific aspects, or take you to heal specific aspects of yourself.
mm,
Um, and it feels like it's a really sacred science, honestly. Like the shamanic music, like the way they sing and the tones and everything, is real. They call it medicine music, and it's different from profane music. You could say it's actually very, very intentional, designed to heal and transform the body. So. Um, yeah, so these days musically, I'm mostly just playing a lot of piano at the moment and practicing guitar. So I'm getting back to like just basics of like classical instruments, and I'm not doing many gigs at the moment, but hopefully things will pick up again in the future. But I'm more focused on the science stuff at the moment.
yeah. Helps release and enjoy and like doing. Yeah, I am very interested in gong.
Oh,
I
the
guess
gong.
yeah, yeah. I recently did a first not step but first session with a gong master, and it's very interesting how this could interact with the body because you work with different frequencies, and so it's like interacting with your body with what you need, and you never go further than your body will let the instrument go with you. It's very interesting, and you can have surprising reaction and feelings. It's very interesting. It's really a tools considering healing and so on. It could really be an interesting tool to use. Yeah, like
Uh,
drums and so on could be very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, I had a gong shower, I guess it's called, a gong bath or a gong shower, um, last year at Music and Sky Festival. It was really good. It's like an expansion. I was just lying there and they were playing the gong, and I felt like my body was just like expanding out to like a great size, and everything was just becoming kind of like loose and yeah, it was like a profound state of consciousness, very blissful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, so gongs and like bells and tuning forks and
Yeah.
this kind of thing. Yeah, really interesting with the well, like with the church bells.
Mm.
So, there was this whole conspiracy to take down the church bells,
Yeah.
and like thousands and thousands of bells like taken down from churches. And we have churches all over the place here, but like most of them don't ring their bells anymore. And even I remember as a boy, in my local town, they would ring the church bells like no more. You got four churches, no bells, right? Um, so what happened? Why were the bells taken away? Why were they there in the first place? Now people are saying, well, the bells actually heal. There's a harmonious vibration, and the alchemists would say that it would eliminate evil spirits, basically. So like it's a harmonious vibration, and it's happening in a rhythmic way because it's happening every hour on the hour throughout the day, and it kind of harmonizes the whole town and sort of scares away evil, as it were. But then, yeah, they took them, well, not all of them, but they took a lot of them down and made them into like bullets and guns and stuff for World War II.
Yeah.
And
When I
yeah, it's like I've seen, like, there's a town near here where they do still ring the church bells, and it's a really nice town. It's always like vibing, and there's always stuff going on. It always looks clean and everything. But then you go to other places and they're just deteriorating rapidly, and there's no church bells and stuff. So I really think there's something to that.
yeah, I just remember when you were speaking about bells, just after going to Bosnia, to Sombor, you remember where the event happened. I came back in Hungary, in Budapest, and I just remember that big, big church, very well known. I don't remember, sorry, the name, but very well known in the center of Budapest, next to the river. And around midnight, the bell started to ring, sorry. And it was amazing how I had this feeling of clearing the evil. Exactly. It was completely that feeling in the night, like making it quiet and secure, sure, like safe. I really had this feeling. Very strange. Mm.
And it makes sense from a physics point of view as well, because you have this long frequency, like, this is like a tuning fork, for example, right? It's like a sort of mini bell, but it's got this long decay. Boo, it slowly decays, and it's focused on this one frequency, and so it sort of entrains other, if you've got like some distortion or whatever in your energy field or whatever, it sort of like knocks that distortion out and trains it towards a more harmonious vibration. Um, and so I think, yeah, I think it does. I think it does have that effect, and it may be subtle or maybe less subtle when it's a big bell, like the whole town or whatever. But yeah, every day, every hour, the ringing of the bell, I think was really important. It was a really important part of life, and it's been taken away. And I think we need to bring back the bells. Bring back the bells.
And we are starting little by little. I know in my little town they have done that last year. I'm not sure it's the same sound because I'm not. I don't think it's same mix they used to rebuild. So it's a little bit different from my remind, if I remind, because when I was young, I was living here. So I just don't remember exactly the same sound, but it was very, very long time ago. But seems like it's not exactly the same sound.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the bells got cracked as well, so they would actually have they would give off a distorted
Yeah.
sound because there's a crack in the bell. People could argue that they broke or whatever, but it seemed like there was a deliberate effort to like sabotage it when when you get the conspiracy behind it and stuff to like take down all these bells and like break them and stuff like that. Um, but like I think of as well wind chimes. A good example of wind chimes in the garden, right? It's like just moving in the wind, but they're giving off this like pure tone, harmonic vibration. Uh, and yeah, I believe that on some subtle level, it does scare away the evil spirits or the unwanted spirits.
Mm.
Um, kind of like sage,
Yeah.
sage. Yeah, so sage is said to, clear the air of evil spirits, and it's very effective at clearing bad smells.
Mm.
I was talking about this because a bad smell is an evil spirit.
Yeah.
This literally is. It's it's a bad spirit or an unclean spirit, if you like. And sage is used for purifying and cleansing and smudging, as they call it, and it's incredibly effective. You can even use it to on your shoes, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, I get like smelly shoes or whatever. It's like burn some sage and blow the smoke into the shoe for like a couple of minutes, and I promise you, it will smell like it's straight out of the factory. I mean, it literally just eliminates the odor.
Oh.
Um, with smoke, like no water or cleaning or anything needed, like just the sage smoke is enough to do it. So
Hmm.
uh,
Interesting.
it's pretty amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's another example. I think even though it's not a bell, right? It's the sage. It's this harmonic vibration that is just able to somehow like clear the air and like reset things.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah.
I have sometimes heard about um, oh, I'm searching the word in English. I guess it's laurier. We can
Laurel.
use it in the kitchen.
Oh,
Um,
I think I might know what you mean.
yeah, I'm just having a look just to make sure I'm not wrong with that. I guess it's laurel, but I'm not sure.
L'Oreal.
It's not L'Oreal, which is not the same.
It's not
It's
sorrel.
Lauris nobilis, but I'm just searching the word in English, maybe. Hmm. Uh, oh, I guess it's bay or laurel. Bay.
I know. I don't think I've heard of it.
Um,
Obey,
bay.
like
B
bay leaves.
B
BAE.
no, not a he. I just I'm losing my word in English today. Um,
That's all good.
yeah, but you can use it. Friend of mine told me you can use one leaf and you burn it, and it's like you dissolve the fears.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's interesting. Plants have many different influence and really help us do something, even if it's energetic. You can feel it. There is
Absolutely.
no property like, I mean, I was taught, for example, pharmaceutical property of a molecule, for example. So this is doing that, and this is doing this, and work with that. And And it's not really the case in the sense it's not a molecule that is working on your cells, for example, because we know that maybe the membrane of the cells is not really the membrane, but it's like the fourth phase of water, so it's another story and so on. So people will have to search a little bit about all that. But we are just finding another explanation about how our body is working. And then we know the plants or herbs are working in a different way. And maybe it's completely true when you saw those true shaman working, and I think specifically of one. His name is Cohen, but it's not Tom Cohen. He was from New York or something like that. He died in the maybe 2015 or something like that. I'm not sure. And he was working with plant and herbs. And during the night, the dream, he was finding the right plants or the right herbs for the clients. And during the dream, he was just putting those two elements together, just in another level. And it was working. The person was healed without any molecules, without any something you can touch and ingest or, amazing.
Remotely. That's amazing, and there's lots of examples of that, isn't there, where healing is done without the molecule. I mean, like homeopathy, for
Yeah.
example. Yeah, they would say there's none of the original molecule left, but something of the essence of the medicine transferred into the water,
Yeah,
which you take and then transfer into your own waters. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There is something, yeah. Water is consciousness. And yeah, I guess I um I told you that story of the work of Austin Veda I was experiencing. That was completely crazy to discover. That photo I took of the water. I was freezing, and indeed I find out a person I was in contact with was my lost brother, and I saw it in the water.
yeah, I remember you telling me this now. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it was completely crazy. For a person I don't know. I have never seen this person in reality. I mean, just having some exchanges like via um, let's say virtual let's say conversation. We never met in person, so it was amazing to discover that person was indeed the water. Told me, just gave me the information. That person was my brother coming back in life in another person. It was amazing. And the moment I discovered that, I had no more interaction with that person. It's crazy, but it's beautiful.
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And it was like so an evidence when you saw the photo, it was an evidence. Really, no other words. It's like amazing. Yeah, amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah. And when you look at the elements, water is the only one of the elements that could really do any of that stuff, right? It's like water's like, yeah, it's like our emotion and our language. And like Veda Austin showed us, like water's got its own language, a way of like communicating, expressing, interpreting things. And yeah, it's water's life, right?
Yeah.
Water's life. It's
Everything is amazing. So, on those beautiful words, I guess we have done a nice talk, and it's a good point to end with that. The beautiful story of the water, which brings beauty in that world and consciousness. So,
yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us all those information, all what you did, what you wrote in your book, and what are the next events for you to come?
Yes, well, you mentioned Andrew Kaufman. I'm actually tomorrow going to be on his platform again on the True Living Fellowship, and I'm going to be giving a presentation about atoms and quantum theory. I'm looking forward to that. So I'm going to be debunking quantum theory hard. I'm going at it hard.
Yeah.
But this is part of a larger presentation I'm making at the moment. For next weekend, I'm going down to England. I'm going to be giving a day-long workshop where I'll be doing like a series of different presentations and demonstrations. So I'm working on that at the moment. But once that's done, once I've done the private presentations, I'm going to make this all into a video presentation, which I can share with the world on my website and stuff. So that's what I'm working on at present. And as for events, I'm going to Confluence in Texas this year. Yeah, I'm going to be at Confluence in May. But that's the only event I have lined up at the moment. So
that's fine. Good. So we can, for anyone in the UK, so go there. It will be amazing for sure. And if you know Andrew Kaufman, so maybe you can still subscribe or join for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's called the True Living Fellowship. It's Andrew Kaufman's private platform. I mean, I think it's got over like 1,000 members. It's been going a while now. And yeah, so I'm speaking on there tomorrow at this time, actually.
Yeah, and I guess there will be a replay for the people after the.
Yeah, you have to be a member of the network, to view it, but it should be available for replay. Yeah.
So perfect.
Great.
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks, Stephanie. It's been great talking to you again.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And so we get two definitions of awakening. There's awakening from sleep, which we do every day, and then there's awakening from deception, occurs far less often. So I was afraid to speak my mind because I knew my views were controversial. I knew I would get ridiculed and called all kinds of names and stuff. But eventually the fear of not speaking my mind overcame the fear of speaking my mind. Some of the symptoms of awakening is you've been humbled and you're now thirsty for knowledge and truth. But also you're just becoming incompatible with worldly norms. You might have a heightened awareness of good and evil. When I was playing the fool, I wasn't really thinking about evil. I just thought everyone was cool and it's all love and light, and if I just be nice, then the world will be nice. But then I had a rude awakening when I started to perceive the evil at play in the world. Can't continue with your old ways. Old beliefs, no longer believable. Old desires expire. You get this kind of 2020 vision where you can now see things a lot more clearly. And it's funny that it was called 2020 vision, right? Perfect vision. And then when 2020 came around, suddenly our vision changed and we see the world completely differently. We now have this kingdom of lies, which a lot of people are bought into 100%. They believe everything on the TV. It's all lies built on top of lies.
That's one small step for man, one giant.
Cut. Let's reset, people. We're live TV. Keep it going. Just shoot the ground. All right, get him back to one. Guys, we have just landed on the moon. Let's go.